Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello, assalamu alaikum to each and every one of you who's actually tuned into Pakistan TV and are watching all this morning. I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan. With me, I'm really lucky. I've been joined by Miss Eesha, Rehan, and for each and every one of you who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, Jummah Mubarak. We hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Eesha, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, Shahzad. I feel absolutely great on this beautiful
Friday
morning.
Yeah.
And we are blessed with the graces of Jummah. It is a beautiful day to connect with people, to have a brotherly bond, and to give back to people. I know I had a very difficult time coming to work today and someone helped me out and I'm very grateful. So I think it is a reminder for everyone to give back and to reflect upon peace.
But you know, that's exactly my question today, Eesha. How do you connect with people?
All right, I think the best way to connect with people is to give a big bright smile. I feel like a smile can definitely change anyone's mood, uplift your mood, and definitely change the chemical imbalance in your brain as well.
Exactly. Thank you so much for you know, kind of reminding us that as well, because in addition to this, now imagine that, you know, that I've always have this habit, and because this is the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that every person that I'm going to see, I will say assalamu alaikum myself, and you know, I will be the first person to say that. But most of the time, whenever I say assalamu alaikum to women, just, you know, probably passing by me or moving across or in the gym or elsewhere, it looks like as if they're in a shock whether why am I even saying salam to them. You know, what do you have to suggest about that?
Well, I feel like, Shahzad, that's very friendly of you to do. However, maybe sometimes people perceive it differently. Maybe especially in Pakistan, we only try to interact or have warm interactions with people that we know about, right? So maybe if someone doesn't know you personally, they might feel a little shocked or starstruck, obviously, since you are one of the biggest stars of Pakistan.
Thank you so much for saying that. And that's exactly what actually came to my attention, because one of these individuals who actually walked up to me and was like, you know, it's so nice of you to, you know, kind of say salam in the first place. And, you know, we were always of the sort that you might be very arrogant and whatnot. So ladies and gentlemen, you know, please make sure that you're not very decisive about people's personality. In fact, make sure that you speak to them. And once you speak to them, you will know whether you were right or wrong. So with this, let's get started with the highlights of the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously we will be touching upon the most pressing issues which we have seen in the recent past as well, and we'll build up on that, because we have been building up on all of these stories from the previous week. First up, the first highlight or the first part of the program will be dedicated to Gaza ceasefire, as Hamas gets assurances from the United States and mediators that the first phase of the ceasefire agreement would signal a complete end to the war in Gaza. Khalil al-Hayya, the head of Hamas negotiating team, said the group has received guarantees from the US and mediators that an agreement on a first phase of the ceasefire agreement means the war in Gaza has ended completely. That's good news. The Israeli government's ratification of the peace plan, which was confirmed in the early hours this morning, paves the way for fighting in Gaza to stop within 24 hours, while Hamas has been given a 72-hour timeline to free Israeli captives. That's the first story that we will be building up on as well. We will be joined by somebody very special all the way from Turkey. But I think Eesha's got another story for us as well. So Eesha, what did you bring for us today?
Of hopeful news and encouraging news, it is a very encouraging news for Pakistan at the economic front that Pakistan and the International Monetary Fund have made a significant progress in the new staff level agreement under the leadership of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and his economic team. Pakistan's reform agenda has been praised internationally for maintaining stability, controlling inflation, and pushing forward through a tough but necessary reform. And while also supporting flood recovery and building climate resilience, today we will unpack this progress and what it means for Pakistan's future, about the rupee, about the everyday life of citizens and how it is going to be benefited.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful, you know, to look at, you know, how, and not just at the diplomatic front, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan is doing wonderfully well at the economic front as well with the true leadership. But not just that, I think for all of these goals to be achieved, you really need to make sure that you're in the right mindset as well. And which is why, ladies and gentlemen, today actually happens to be the World Mental Health Day. We will be speaking about it, you know, the stigma around it, the taboos around it, and we will try to bust all of those myths which surround, you know, mental health. And mental health, for people who are out there, you know, with the stigma that it comes with, I think it's more about awareness, that once people will get to know how people can actually get well, if they
And
get the right
overcome the
treatment in
situation.
time, is something that we will be speaking about, and we will be joined by an expert too as well, who happens to be a consultant psychiatrist. Well, this is it for the show today, ladies and gentlemen. We're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere, because once you come back, we will be speaking about or building up on the Gaza ceasefire. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. You're watching Pakistan TV, and we are World This Morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned to Pakistan TV. As we told before heading out towards the shore bay that we were all this morning, let's get started with the story that we've been building up on, for the past couple of weeks, and how Pakistan have been playing a pivotal role. And not just that, I think it was an impetus of Pakistan to make sure that, that we give in all of that is required to bring that ceasefire together. But to speak about it further, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really lucky that I've been joined by Mr. Hasan Abdullah, happens to be a diplomatic correspondent at the TRT World. Hello, Hasan. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum salam, Shahzad, Eesha. I'm good. Thank you very much. I hope you two are well.
Yep, absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. So a sigh of relief as, Hamas gets assurances from the US and mediators that the first phase of the ceasefire agreement would signal a complete end to the war in Gaza.
Well, yes, but there are some concerning signs. So, for example, after President Trump tweeted on his social media account that the two sides have agreed, Israel actually continued targeting Gaza. And then even after the ratification was announced by the Israeli side, they still carried out attacks in parts of Gaza City. And one of the prominent journalists from Gaza, he actually tweeted that Israel had just killed his third son. So unfortunately, some of those concerning developments are still there.
Exactly. And Hasan, if we are to speak about these concerning developments, let's just, kind of speak about where Israel continues to strike, in Gaza as well. And not just that, I think where we spoke about the guarantees being, given by the United States government, how does all of this imply now? Because these guarantees, it looked like as if these are not the guarantees that will probably hold Israel back.
Absolutely. I mean, the question of implementation is there. And if you look at the past, the question of implementation has always been there. And if you go back to the 20-point plan, then again, remember, there is the clause that if Israel feels that there's any sort of violation, then it has the prerogative to carry out or restart its military campaign. And the US is going to be supportive of that. So, of course, that is a matter of concern for the Palestinian side. I'm in Qatar at the moment, and the people I've been talking to, what they're saying is that this is basically about the Hamas and those who are acting as guarantors on Hamas's side to make it clear to the world that, once again, Hamas is going to be living up to the part of the agreement, to the part of the bargain. And if it is violated, then it's going to be Israel that's going to be doing that. So I think it's really more to do with the establishment of moral authority as to, one side fulfilling the part of the bargain, the other side violating it. The outcome, of course, is a bit concerning. There are some concerns even at this point in time. So, for example, in the first phase, Israel, how much is it going to be withdrawing from Gaza? Because there have been some contentious disagreements on the point of withdrawal, and at what point can Israel return? So obviously those concerns are there, but I think the Hamas side is just trying to show that it's going to live up to its part of the bargain, and if there's violation, as has been happening since Oslo until now, then Hamas says that it's Israel.
Yes, exactly. And we have seen how Hamas is trying to comply with the deal and follow the rules. However, on the other side, the Human Rights Watch is saying that the world cannot take a sigh of relief yet. The world cannot exhale yet, because accountability still needs to be taken with the war crimes that Netanyahu committed. He is still a war criminal. So do we see any accountability being taken in action?
Well, let me be very blunt and honest there, Eesha. I think it's very clear. So, for example, when you look at the statements that have come from the United States about ICC officials and even their families and imposition of sanctions, it's very clear that the implementation of judgments is very selective, and it's really about who has that power to be able to refuse to comply with the judgments. I'm not very optimistic about that, given the statements that have been coming. There's another key issue as well. So even before accountability, you've got at least 10,000 people who are missing in Gaza, according to some of the international agencies. Many are believed to be under the rubble. It's not clear whether they're alive or dead. So what's needed at this point in time is a comprehensive search and rescue operation for anyone who is still surviving. Obviously, we have seen cases where people have survived after many days of being under the rubble, but chances are slim. But that, of course, is another priority at the moment.
All right.
Exactly, and Hasan, in this line, so I'm going to kind of mention over here how Zahra actually said that she added that the governments also should not wait for the US plan to come into effect before taking action to prevent further violations of Palestinian rights in both Gaza and in the West Bank. That includes imposing an arms embargo on Israel and targeted sanctions against Israeli officials. How do you see that happening? And for all of those nations who played a role of a mediator, do you think that they will be able to kind of get that to 100%?
Well, I don't think 100% is going to be happening, given the history over the last 2 years. So even those countries that said that they're going to be recognizing a state of Palestine, they continue to engage in the provision of weapons and intelligence sharing with Israel. That, of course, contributed directly to the slaughter of Palestinian civilians. It seems that a number of countries basically felt the domestic pressure from their people who were, for example, talking about blockading of ports and preventing shipments going to Israel. But other than that, those countries continued with that. There are, of course, those countries that don't even recognize the state of Palestine. You've got the United States that has been vetoing every single attempt at reaching a ceasefire at the UN Security Council. So I'm not really expecting those dynamics to change. There are other contentious issues when you move towards stage 2. So, for example, the attempt to get Hamas to put down its arms, that's a violation of international law. International law gives the right to resistance using force to all those people who are under occupation. So there are a number of contentious issues they will be dealing with in the coming days and weeks.
Exactly, and the sole reason why I actually posed this question towards you was because we're multi-tier. Now imagine that Israeli attacks continued in Gaza on Thursday, which Eesha just mentioned, and 29 Palestinians killed on Thursday as well. According to the Wafa news agency, a spokesman for the Gaza City municipality says the reality on the ground has not changed. Were you able to get a chance to kind of connect with somebody over there, and what do they say about the ceasefire and how the ground reality stands tall?
It's really mixed emotions. I mean, been in touch with some people. I've been going through the tweets of some people as well. I think it's really mixed reactions. I've talked to our correspondent there, and he's basically saying that, people, given that they don't really have many options, they're hopeful that there's going to be at least a pause in bloodbath. But remember, this is not the first time they're experiencing something like this. They have a long history of experiencing this. This wasn't the first time Gaza was targeted. Gaza has been under siege for a long time now. It doesn't have its own airspace. It doesn't have its own waters. The fishermen can't go out to catch some fish and so forth. They've been living those conditions for a long time. So they're hoping that something is going to change. And I think they don't really have many options but to hope. But realistically, given the past, I think they're really bracing themselves for Israel to step up its offensive again, anytime, really.
All right, and in speaking about the ceasefire plan, it's actually divided in 2 phases. So one phase includes a plan in which the US will deploy 200 soldiers to Israel to monitor support and the ceasefire. Do you think these 200 troops are going to watch over Israel and make sure that they do not keep committing atrocities against Gaza at this point?
Well, there are many serious questions and for very good reasons about the role of the United States. So, for example, the US has not really been acting as a neutral party. When you speak to the Qataris, when you speak to the Turks, even Jordanians, when you speak to the Palestinians themselves, it's very clear that they see the United States acting as a clearly partial actor. And when you go back to the 20 points again, it's very clear that Israel has the prerogative to make a decision and it's going to carry out attacks whenever it wants. So that does raise many questions about the US forces and their efficiency in terms of preventing the slaughter of Palestinians.
Thank you so much for mentioning that because, this will perfectly link with that as well. Now, imagine that Trump actually gets an official invite to address Israel's parliament, and it's after W. Bush in 2008 that Trump actually gets the opportunity to go and address the parliament. So do you see impartiality over here, or do you think that it's the Trump-led administration which certainly wants to put an end to the war in different regions of the world? And we have seen the Trump administration do that. And how do you see this turning out?
Well, let's be very clear about something, Shahzad. If you go by the official lines and if you're to follow or embrace the sort of statements that are given at face value, then you would think that this is some sort of a humanitarian gesture or this is some sort of an anti-war stance. But that's not really the case. I mean, facts don't really substantiate this. If you look at the last 2 years and the constant vetoing of attempts at a ceasefire and so forth, President Trump has his own motives, including some personal motives. He's really and Friday is the big day when you're expecting the Nobel committee to decide on a name. He has his own personal ambitions. Facts over the last 2 years, including the term of President Trump, suggest otherwise. So there's no hint of impartiality. The US has made its position very clear. Even the fact that it's not even recognizing the existence of a state, that really does send out a very strong message. So let not there be any pretensions about any humanitarian gesture. The motives are different.
Exactly. All right. So when you say that, so in Donald Trump, obviously, when he spoke to the media, he said that we would want to build Gaza back and that the countries who've actually played a role of a mediator should actually help them build back better. Not just that, because you're in Doha as of now, Qatar, how do you think that, that all of those mediators, may that be Qatar, may that be Egypt, may that be Pakistan or Jordan for that say, what's the response coming in from all of these countries where we do see how it has not come to ground zero if you are to speak about ceasefire, because just yesterday 29 Palestinians were killed?
Well, these countries, of course, have shown concern. So whether you look at Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, they have shown concern about the situation. But of course, there's the question of who really is controlling the situation, and we cannot really deny about the role of the United States in all of this. And when it comes to reconstruction, and when it comes to, for example, the involvement of actors like Jared Kushner, who's the son-in-law of US President Donald Trump, who is heavily invested in real estate and who has not been very discreet about his motives and plans on, when it comes to the reconstruction of Gaza, I think, the message is very clear to those who bother to think. As far as the Palestinians is concerned, what about the right to return? What about the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been displaced? There's no mention of that in the 20 points. Rather, they've been given the option that if they want, they can choose to go to a third country. That's just a very convenient and politically correct way of pushing that displacement, which has been amounting to nothing but ethnic cleansing over the last many decades.
Exactly. And Hasan, just one last question towards the end, because we're in the 20-point peace accord, they've spoken about that there will be a transitional government, there will be troops, who will be there in place, and then the disarmament that they have been talking about. How do you see all of that happening? Do you think that in the first phase, it has started already, where we still see Palestinians being killed by Israeli atrocities?
Well, when they talk about the technocratic setup and when they talk about the international body that's expected to have people like former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, I think it raises many serious questions. So, for example, Tony Blair is the person who took his country to an illegal war in Iraq. He has the blood of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis on his hand. Such a person, is he really going to have humanitarian concerns? Is he really going to be concerned about the lives of people? I think these are fundamental questions, and I don't think they're very difficult questions.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Hasan Abdullah, for being with us, and thank you so much for joining us all the way from Doha, Qatar. And it was wonderful to actually speak to journalists of such a high stature, where he certainly gets the grip right from the reality which stands tall. In the name of ceasefire, ladies and gentlemen, there's this one developing story that I would want to share with our audiences, where how Pakistan have actually played a very crucial role in making sure that, that we bring about that ceasefire as a mediator, because the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said President Trump's meeting with the Arab and Muslim leaders, including Pakistan, was a turning point to create coalition supporting Gaza peace plan. With that, we're heading out towards a short break. Once you're going to come back, let's move on to the economics of Pakistan and how Pakistan is progressing, and how there's already probably talks about the staff level agreement with the IMF as well. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Good morning.
Welcome back to all the lovely people who stayed tuned, and for the people who just joined, you are watching World This Morning on Pakistan TV, and today in this segment we are going to be talking about an encouraging news for Pakistan in the economic front. Pakistan and the International Monetary Fund have made a significant progress towards a staff level agreement. It is going to help control inflation, pushing forward a tough but necessary reform, and also bring economic stability in Pakistan. Not just this, it will build up the resilience of the climate resilience and the flood recovery that Pakistan is facing right now. And to speak more about this integral topic, we have Dr. Manzoor Ahmad, who is the former ambassador of the World Trade Organization. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
So wonderful to have you over here. To get started, first of all, what is the status of the meeting that has taken place in Karachi and Islamabad from, I think that the IMF staff is over here from the 24th of last month till the 8th of this month.
I think it was summed up very well that there has been significant progress. Both sides say that, there's good progress, and implementation is whatever the commitments, Pakistan's commitments, they are standing up to those commitments. They're trying to fulfill those commitments. And, I mean, there have been some little problems because of floods. Okay. One, that the estimates, originally the government thought something like 450 billion or something. And then they looked again at, how many houses and crops and all that. So they came up with something like 750 billion. And IMF thinks that maybe it's a little exaggerated, because they think the crops may not suffer that much, that what is estimated. Maybe it's about 550 billion. So, for that, that 200 billion brings lots of other things, because we are saying, okay, this gap of 200 billion, so maybe we should have a flood levy or something, some such things. And they think it's not that much, but if you do think that you need to do something, then bring down your expenditure, your development funds, etc.
Exactly, which is why I'm going to kind of pick up on this as well, because last month Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif had urged the lender to take into account the recent flood damage into the review for the country. Now, in addition to this, there's the $1.1 billion resilience and sustainable facility which might be provided to Pakistan. Where are we on that?
Well, I think there wasn't a problem. This is the first review for that fund, and the second one for this one. And I think it's the second one, which is, I think that's a more, like climate and all things. That I think they expressed satisfaction. They were, I don't think there was any serious problem with that.
All right.
It was on this side that is, there's some, all these things.
and this report was considered a large deal for Pakistan. The IMF mentioned fiscal consolidation, energy sector reforms, maintaining inflation within target. So what out of all these areas, what is going to impact the common man of Pakistan the most?
Okay, each one of them. Let me start with the last one was energy.
Yes, yes.
Well, energy, they say you have to keep up with, if there's any increase in international prices of oil, so subsidy shouldn't come in. Keep up those tariffs with that. And I think for the time being, they're happy. I think the only thing in energy there, perhaps there's some gap between the two sides. We think that, despite all our efforts, there would be still 500 billion rupees in rupees circular debt. And this is too much. Maybe bring it down to 200 billion. Maybe cut down the losses somewhere or increase the prices more. That's on the energy side. The second was inflation. Although there's been slight upward because of the floods, etc., but still very good figures, less than 5%, so no issues. What was the third thing you said?
The third thing was a fiscal consolidation.
Yes, fiscal consolidation. I think there, the fiscal deficit is still under control. It's not like what it was when they had this previous, in May, I think the first review, we had, for the first time, we had surplus, etc. And this time, I think some surpluses from the provinces also come in the figures. And the provinces are, too much into floods and rehabilitation, etc. And they say maybe we'll not be able to give that much.
And that's exactly what I'm going to, kind of touch base with. Now, for the current fiscal year, Punjab is required to provide a cash surplus of 740 billion rupees, followed by Sindh at rupees 370 billion, and then uske baad Khyber Pakhtunkhwa 220 billion, and Balochistan 185 billion. Where we do know how Bank of Punjab has done phenomenally well, it was all over the news. Do you think that the provinces might be able to do that on these terms?
The biggest, as you said, the mentioned is 750 from Punjab. And Punjab suffered the worst floods. And there's a lot of activity going on. So there is some problem there.
Okay.
But I think IMF has said that we understand these problems. And whatever our sympathies are with the people, etc., and we try to, but they say be a little realistic about your estimates and how much it's going to.
And another good news where the tax hikes are not on the table for now.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what the finance minister said, that they're not going to have another mini budget. But one never knows, because I think again there's a little conflict here. IMF says if you have to put some, say, duties, import taxes, etc., then look at those sectors where there's some exemptions, like fertilizer, like pesticides, etc. Government says no, agriculture we don't touch because of these floods, etc. Already the crops are. So the government's, I think, view is, all this is from the press. I don't have any inside information, but the
government. Look like as if you do.
Government's thing is that let's tax anything luxury, the big cars and those things. Let's try to bring, because we don't really need them. But IMF says, just you opening up your economy, and now you're bringing back through your, so they are a little bit.
But that's exactly what I'm going to ask you now, and probably you would be able to guide us better. And that is that, so I'm a big car enthusiast myself, and I've been importing cars in the past as well. The duties actually came down, which was surprising for us.
Now, you see, there's a 5-year program for opening up the economy, and our regulatory duty was very high.
Okay.
So it was about 90%. So there was a general decision that bring down these regulatory duties should be finished in the next 5 years.
Right.
Okay. So from on cars or on some such things was 90%. That duty, in addition to custom, in addition to other things. So that was brought down to 50%. It wasn't meant for the cars. It was just that in general we had to finish, because we have decided in those reforms that we'll get rid of all these para-tariffs, like regulatory duty, like additional duties, etc. So that had to be done for that purpose, not the car side. But still, all this reduction is still on the big cars, is still more than 300%.
Exactly.
It's the highest in the world.
Exactly,
That's
which is
great.
why now we're moving to electric cars as well. And in addition to this, you know, there's this news which came out, and we built up on that, and we spoke about it, and it was that, you know, that when we speak about, you know, the surplus, you know, after 21 years, Pakistan actually experienced for the very first time in 21 or 22 years, $2.1 billion of surplus. Do you think that it was all the measures that were taken by Pakistan government, the policies, and then how IMF had to play a role to make sure that, you know, that we open up our economy?
Yes, all those things. Plus, there was international, I should say, the commodity prices were very low. You see, we depend a lot on import of, you know, 1/3 of our imports consists of these energy imports. And you know, if the prices were about $80 to $100 or $120, obviously we wouldn't have anything.
True.
So the prices stayed low. That's fortunate, but the other things that you mentioned as well.
Exactly. Well, that's great. I think for us to kind of be in this time as well, where we do see Pakistan's economy doing so wonderfully well. Now, very quickly, in your opinion, because I do know, you know, before the Honorable Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif took to office, we did see how, you know, the inflation was in double figures.
Yeah.
You know, how the rates were very skyrocketing, how the energy prices were very high. What sort of policy changes have actually helped Pakistan progress economy-wise?
Well, I think one is the State Bank was more based on data rather than, and they didn't try to you know, artificially inflate rupee.
Yep.
So, you know, because you have to spend a lot of, you know, millions of dollars in the market, and those are avoided. And also being under IMF program, they come every 6 months, but in between there's all the time this check going on.
Yeah.
That was there. But then international factors helped. And I think the government has been, I must say,
Really
doing, yeah, they've been working very hard, and because I'm in some of those committees and I see them, they start right in the morning until it's, and you know, a person like me retired, but I also worked about 15 hours a day on their.
Exactly, and that's the kind of leadership that we get to witness from the Honorable Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif. My father has worked under his leadership as well, and he always speaks about it, that how he's there at 6 a.m. in the morning and continues to work till late at night. So very quickly, one last question from my side, and then Eesha has another question. How do you think, where do you think in these times of economic prosperity in Pakistan, a common man should invest?
Where should, well, for the last 2-3 years, I don't know if the common man can have that access, but it was the stock market. I mean, this was the world's biggest, you know, biggest gains 2-3 times. And because other things are still a little bit of flux, I can't really say, because real estate, I don't know, all these things. So that is, and it's not that difficult to invest there. You just have to go to office, they'll help you with everything. But stock market still has a way to go up.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
So there's still a chance.
Yeah, there's still a
And
chance.
what portfolio to build? Yeah, is it petroleum? Is it just asking you for advice how to make money?
You know, I'm not invested.
I think Shahzad can advise you better about how to make money.
Three things which have made hell of a lot of money. One is banks.
Yep.
All right.
The other is fertilizer.
Fertilizer.
And mostly it's mostly this, but more recently cement, etc., doing well because there are lots of exports of cement taking place.
Oh,
And
so a lot of non-generic things that we hear. I feel like Dr. Manzoor knows about his area of expertise, and thank you so much for highlighting that. But circling back to the staff level agreement, right? So the finance minister Mohammad Aurangzeb is going to be leading a delegation to Washington this week. Do you think it will conclude and finally settle the staff level agreement that we are going to witness?
yes, I do. I do believe, because the things that are pending are, you know, like this flood estimates, etc. I think they'll come to some. They'll have to, government side will have to prove why they think it's 700, and so these other 2-3 things, they are just some figure works here and there. There's nothing very major sticking. I think the government has mostly complied with what they were asking.
And you know, as Shahzad highlighted before, the IMF has actually acknowledged Pakistan's fiscal discipline and how we're working towards climate resilience. And not just this, it's about the strong implementation of policies that we have upholded this year. So under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister and our economic front, what policies do you think Pakistan has highlighted and that has helped the common people and has helped us grow into an economic ascent as we speak?
Well, I think you're near the end, so I can't go into much detail. But three or four things that I highlight. First, Pakistan was a very inward-looking country for a long time. The recent last budget, the way they opened up, you're talking about the cars, but open up in general. So they think that this opening up, things will come, they'll get processed, they'll go abroad, and what the finance minister calls it, East Asian moment, the way the East Asian countries did. So that was one thing. Second was energy was a big problem because it was not sustainable. Now they are more or less sustainable. You know, they're not this thing. And in other commodities, you know, for example, there was like energy circular debt, there was wheat circular debt. So all that was made, you know, opened up, buying and selling, etc. So that thing was another thing. But I think in all sorts of areas that you look, there was reforms. Privatization. That's making big
waves.
Step forward. Hopefully by the end, it's still another 3 months, PIA would be gone. Roosevelt Hotel would be more or less, you know, they're thinking various options. They're still taking much longer, but these things are happening.
Exactly. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And certainly, it does not really look like as if you retired. You spoke really well. You've got so much grip on the subject. You know, you've dedicated your entire life to this. So I think it was wonderful, and it was an auspicious occasion for us to have you on our morning show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And very quickly, you know, for people who are out there, because we did mention right at the beginning of the program that how it's the World Mental Health Day. Ladies and gentlemen, we would want to, as well this morning at Pakistan TV, would want to highlight that there's a lot of stigma and taboo attached to that. It is about awareness. Now imagine that, God forbid, if somebody's been in an accident and that we can see his, you know, fractured arm or leg.
Bruises,
unfortunately, it's just that we cannot see what's going on inside the man's brain or a woman's brain or anybody's brain. But what we really need to make sure is that we take those people to the specialists, people who specialize in those treatments, and rather than hiding it from our family, I think it's the support system which needs to come in. So please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that if you feel that somebody needs you, make sure that you take out time for them, speak to them, sit down with them, and make them understand how essential it is for anybody and everybody for going through a mental illness or a problem to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Until next time, look after yourselves. Remember us all in your prayers. For you know, all of those people who actually watch World this morning, ladies and gentlemen, Jummah Mubarak. Till the next time, look after yourselves. We'll see you on Monday. Eesha, thank you so much for being a wonderful co-host. I'm going to actually kind of congratulate Mr. Basit as well, because Basit today was our captain of the ship because Madam Sana couldn't make it to office. Madam Sana, we missed you. And Basit, congratulations. You've done a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, you were watching Pakistan TV, and we are World This Morning. Allah Hafiz. Thank you, sir.